Okay, I'm sorry. Is my audio on now for YouTube watchers? Can you please let me know if the audio is on? Give me a comment. Yes, okay, good. So we gave a little introduction and we said that we're going to focus on some outlandish Talmud stories and try to discover their lessons for life. And tonight we're going to focus on something that's very relevant in society today, in our country. There's a lot of racial tension, a lot of upheaval, a lot of division in our societies, in our communities, which is tragic. And we need to all step up and do something about it and talk about it and not be afraid to confront it and learn and see what we can do as an individual, as a community, to bring more healing to our world. So I hope you've downloaded the source sheet, and we're going to begin actually from story number 2. So if you turn to side B, story number 2 is from the Talmud in Ta'anit. It's page 20, A and B, so it goes over 2 sides of the page. Okay, let's begin. Tana Rabbanan, the rabbis taught a very important principle. Le'olam yehei adam, a person should always be rach kekaneh, soft and flexible like a reed, v'al yehei kasheh ke'erez, and don't be firm and stiff like a tall, powerful cedar tree. Be flexible in life. Don't be so rigid. Don't be so uptight. That is the teaching. Where does the teaching come from? There's a story behind this teaching. And this is the story we're going to learn. So pay attention. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable how relevant it is to nowadays. There was a story about the famous Talmudic sage, Rabbi Elazar, the son of Rabbi Shimon. Maybe you've heard of him because Rabbi Shimon is Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, who we celebrated his passing on Lag BaOmer a few weeks ago, and his son was Rabbi Elazar. And you know about the two of them that when they were hiding from the Romans, they went inside the cave for 12 years, and then for a 13th year. So here's a story about the son, Rabbi Elazar. Migdal Gador, he was coming from Migdal Gador, Beis Rabbi, from his teacher's house. He was riding on his donkey. Umetayel al Sfas Hanar, and he was taking a leisurely ride across the riverbank. Somach Simcha Gedola, and he was filled with tremendous joy. In fact, his ego was swollen. He was inflated inside his mind and heart. Why? Because he just finished a long day of Torah study. He felt very accomplished. He felt that he had really grown a lot and achieved a lot, and it was getting to his head. And so now he's riding leisurely on his donkey. And he happened to pass by one person. That person was a very ugly person. And that person greets the great Rabbi Elazar and he says, Shalom Alecha Rebbe. That was the famous way to greet a rabbi, your Rebbe. Shalom Alecha Rebbe. Peace to you, dear Rebbe. But he did not respond to his greeting. But then after a pause, he didn't respond, but he tells him, Reika, you empty one. Kama mechur oisa ish. How ugly are you? How ugly is that person talking to me right now? How dare you be talking to me? Shema kol b'nei ircha mechurin kamoischa. Are all the other residents in your neighborhood as ugly as you are? Armaloi. So that person responds, Eini yodea. I don't know. Ella, you know what you can do? Lech ve'emor le'umen she'asa'ani. Go and tell the craftsman who created me, Kama mechur kulizeh shasisa. How ugly this vessel is, how ugly this human body is that you're seeing right now. Pause. Such a strange story. Here's this great rabbi, and now he greets this person in such a derogatory, nasty way. How ugly you are. By the way, there are commentaries that say that this person was not really a human being, but he was really Elijah the prophet, Eliyahu Hanavi, that was sent down to this world in the form of this person, and it was a test. It was a test for the great Rabbi Elazar, especially at the moment when he's feeling so inflated, he's feeling so arrogant and proud of himself. Why is he greeting this person so nastily, so unbecoming? Rabbi Elazar was a great sage. Nobody talks like that. How dare you talk like that? It's not allowed. So the commentary is right. The great Maharsha commentary says, this person was a Kushi. This person was black. And Rabbi Elazar maybe made a judgment about him and thought maybe he's a thug, maybe he's a bandit, maybe he's coming to attack him. And so with that judgment, he right away lashed out, perhaps to protect himself or whatever, to say, how ugly you are, get out of here, I don't want to see you, I don't want to know you. Think about it. This story happened some 1900 years ago. So that person responds, you're talking to me? Don't ask me, go to my creator who created me. Which in essence, the commentary is right. You know what he's saying? You have an issue with me. The issue is not with me. You have an issue with God. You're challenging God's handiwork. God made you and God made me and God made everybody. And you're calling me something subhuman and inferior. You're suggesting that God makes inferior things. God is a lousy craftsman. And sometimes he makes mistakes, and I'm one of those mistakes. So you have an issue with me. Don't take it up with me. Take it up with God. That's a challenge that he was telling him. You have an issue against God. Let's see how this plays out. So suddenly Rabbi Elazar realizes, I have just performed a very grave sin. I was just so nasty. How pathetic of me. How low of me. He realized how much he sinned. Yard min hachamor. He came off the donkey. And he bowed himself in front of this man. This man has no name, by the way. He's just an ugly person, an individual. And he tells him and he pleads with him, I pained you. I'm so sorry. Please forgive me. So he responds to him, I'm not going to forgive you until you go to the craftsman, God who created me. And again, tell him how ugly this vessel is that God has made. Along the lines of what we were saying earlier, if you think about it, he's telling him, it's not about me forgiving you. I can't even forgive you. I mean, I can give partial forgiveness, but you haven't just offended me, you've offended God. You need to turn to God and ask God for forgiveness because you have terribly said something very disparaging about God's creation. So this guy says, I'm done with you. I have no faith. I'm going on my way. So he continues to go on his way, going home. But this Rabbi Elazar continues to follow him on the donkey. And he says, please, and he's pleading, I want your forgiveness, I'm sorry. Finally, this person comes to his neighborhood. And when he comes to his neighborhood, and this great Rabbi Elazar is behind him on the donkey, everyone in the neighborhood is standing there watching and seeing this person came home from work. No, he comes home every day. But the great Rabbi Elazar came home. What's he doing? Why is he visiting our city? So Yotzu b'nei Ira l'krasei, all the members of the city, word spread, Rabbi Elazar is coming. Everybody came out to greet this great rabbi. And they shouted out to him endearingly, Shalom alecha Rabbi, peace to you, our dear master. Rabbi, Mori, our Rebbe, our teacher, our master. What an honor that you've decided to visit us here in the city. How can we help you? Can we host you? Can we serve you dinner? They were being very gracious to him. So this ugly person who's coming home and entering the city, Amar lehem, he turns to the town people and he says, Limiatin karen Rebbe? Who are you calling? The great Rebbe, the great master, the great teacher. Amar lehem. Amar lo, so they told him, Lezeshe metar lacharecha. That person on the donkey behind you. You don't know who he is? He's Rabbi Elazar, son of Rabbi Shimon. Amar lehem, so the ugly person tells his fellow townspeople, Im zer Rebbe, if he's a great spiritual master, Al Yirbu K'maisa B'Yisrael, may be God's will that there should be no more like him among Israel. Who needs people like him? Damaging, harmful people. Amar lo, so they told him, dear sir, you're being careful what you're saying. Do you know who you're talking about? Do you know whose presence you're in? Why are you saying that? Why are you being so disrespectful? Amar lehem, he tells them, Kach v'kach asali. You know what this person did to me? This is what he did to me. And he tells them the whole story about what he called him and how he spoke so derogatory to him. So they were very sympathetic, probably a bit alarmed. So they tell him, nonetheless, please find it in your heart to forgive him. He is a very wondrous sage. He's worthy of your forgiveness. Maybe he made a mistake. He had a moment. Who knows what, but forgive him. So he tells them, you know what? In your honor, my dear townspeople, I'm willing to forgive him. On condition that this person should never do this again. He should never get into the habit of doing this all the time. What does it mean? By the way, the Maharsha, the commentary says, what does it mean? You should never get into the habit of doing this all the time. Meaning, one-off. On occasion, you're allowed to be nasty to somebody else. You're allowed to be racist. You're allowed to say to somebody how ugly you are. So he says, no. What caused this person's racism, this person's nastiness? It was his ego. It was his inflated self, how proud he was of who he was. So he says, on condition he doesn't get accustomed to this haughtiness, this arrogance. He refrains from having these inflated moments of indulgence in one's self, heightened state of existence. And if he refrains from that, he's not going to fall into the trap to ever be so nasty to me or to anybody else. That's why I'm going to forgive him. By the way, if you look at the language of the Talmud, when he responds to the townspeople, he says, Kach v'kach asali. This is what this person did to me. He didn't do anything to him. He said something. There's a difference between saying something and doing actively something. He should have said, this is what this person said to me. What do you mean, what he did to me? So the commentary is right. He actually did something. When you say something not nice, when you say something that is shameful, that is harmful, that embarrasses somebody, the Talmud says, you can even see on a person's face, it's almost like an act of murder. Shaming somebody is almost like an act of murder, which is why when you say something harmful and embarrassing to somebody, you see their blood starts to get drawn. Maybe it gets drawn to their face and they turn red and beetroot and they're all embarrassed and ashamed. Or maybe they turn white and pale because the blood is being drawn out of their face. But this drawing of blood, the audio is off again. I'm sorry, guys. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me on YouTube? The audio shouldn't be off. Hello? Yes, good. So this is what this person did to me. He almost murdered me. When you shame somebody, it's like an act of murder. To the extent that the Talmud says, better you should jump into a fiery cauldron and do that to yourself than ever, heaven forbid, to shame somebody. And shaming somebody is one of the worst sins, more than the many other great cardinal sins that we speak about. So this is the story. Miyad, after this happened and this person forgave him in the end, Nichnas Rabbi Elazar ben Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Elazar visited the Bet Midrash, he visited the synagogue in that town, and he stood up at the bima. He gave a bang and he said, my friends, I want to teach a lesson. But Darash, and he said, a person should always be flexible, forgiving, empathetic, sensitive, compassionate, like a reed which can bend. Don't be so uptight and so firm and so rigid and so proud of yourself like the tall cedar tree. That's where this lesson came from. Rabbi Elazar taught this story, and it became a lesson from this story where he failed. He fell into the trap of being like a reed, arrogant and firm and bold, and not forgiving and compassionate, arrogant like a cedar and not like a reed. And the Talmud concludes, as a result of this, the kaneh, the reed, was rewarded. That the reed is one of those things that you can use when you write a Sefer Torah, mezuzah, tefillin. You either use the feather or you can use the reed, and it's designed in a way that you can actually sharpen it to a very fine point, and it works well with the ink. But the reed was rewarded because this is a symbol. The whole Torah, the tefillin that you wear, the mitzvah, the mezuzah on your door, what's the message? The message is to be like this reed. This reed is someone who knows how to adapt, who knows how to be sensitive to somebody else. The biggest challenge here is where I want to view the universe through my lens, through my world. This is how I think, how I behave, what I think is right. And therefore, if you think differently, look differently, behave differently, you're off, you're wrong, and I'm right. That's the biggest challenge going on over here. And that comes from arrogance. And that comes from being like a cedar tree, which is what Rabbi Elazar had a mistake. And the lesson is be like the reed. Learn to create space. If you want to allow someone else to live in this world together with you, then you need to create space for them. And that is to say, here I am, I'm here, and I end here, and not to make more of me, right? You think about this. A lot of people want to just surround themselves always in social atmospheres with people who think like them, behave like them, and look like them. When you're doing that, what are you doing? You're really just creating more of yourself in this world, right? You need more you. We don't need more you. We have enough of you. We have you. You is enough. You is great. God made you. But God also made other people. And if you want to allow for other people to coexist with you in this world, you have to learn to create space for that and to recognize others might think differently, look differently, behave differently, and that's okay. So I think the takeaway from this story is, first of all, how even the greatest of people failed and slipped because of his arrogance. But there was an act of forgiveness here. Why was there an act of forgiveness? Because he had true remorse. He said, I'm sorry. He begged. He followed the person all the way to town. I don't know how long the journey was, but it was a long time. And he probably had other plans. But he realized he cannot leave this person until he truly achieves forgiveness. And for that, he has to show true remorse and regret. And finally, this person said, I'll forgive you. Why will I forgive you? On condition, or because I realize you truly regret what you did and you're not going to do it again. So this wasn't just paying lip service to saying, I'm sorry, but it was reaching out saying, I really did something wrong. I recognize how wrong it was. I recognize that my mistake and how I failed over here, and I'm not going to do it again. And on that account, he was forgiven. So that's this story of the great Rabbi Elazar and the ugly person, which is a very outlandish story, but it's such a powerful story for us today. I have more I want to say about that, but let's go to the other story now and study that one. And then at the end, because there's similar themes, and then we're going to wrap them up together to try to take some takeaways. So turn over to side 1 now of your handout. We're going to start with the number 1, which is a story from the Talmud in Bava Metzia, 84a. Okay, it's a long text. Let's go through this. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, the great Rabbi Yochanan said, Ana ishtari meshepira Yerushalayim. I am from the only remaining people of the beautiful people of Yerushalayim. He said, I'm a beautiful person. You should know that the Talmud says that when God created the world, 10 measures of beauty came down to the world. 9 fell into Jerusalem, and 1 was spread out all over the world. Apparently, therefore, the people in Jerusalem are more beautiful than anybody else, which we hope so. Because what does beautiful mean, right? Beauty, of course, is not just skin deep. Beauty is not just a facade of a person, but beauty is true beauty. So beauty is also the beauty of one's wisdom and one's character and one's soul and one's spirit, real beauty. And beauty came down to Jerusalem. And now Rabbi Yochanan is saying at this point, after the destruction of the temple and so many have left, I'm the only beautiful person that remains here. In fact, he was so beautiful that the Talmud describes so amazingly his beauty. Listen carefully. Hi, man, the boy mechse shufer de Rabbi Yochanan. If somebody wishes to envision the extent of Rabbi Yochanan's beauty, naisi kisa de kaspa mibei salki. Take a shiny silver goblet from the silversmith, a new silver goblet, v'nemalye partzedeya de rumna sumka, and fill it with red pomegranate seeds. V'nerdele klila de varda sumka, and then place a crown of red roses on the lip of this goblet. V'noisve bin shimsha letula, and position it between the sunlight and the shade. Hahuza haruri, and the glow and the luster and the beauty that you're going to see. Me'ein shufa de Rabbi Yochanan, that is a semblance of Rabbi Yochanan's beauty. I've never tried that out. It does sound very beautiful. Sounds like a nice painting you could make for your house. So that's Rabbi Yochanan's beauty. Sometimes we say that, there's a story about Rabbi Yeshua, the son of Hananiah, another sage. And he was a great wise person. In fact, he was close with the Caesar in Rome. He's also not a very handsome person. He says he was also ugly, whatever that means. And once the daughter of the Caesar turned to him and says, wow, you're so ugly. How could that be? So he turns to the daughter and he says, I have a question for you. In your father's cellar, wine cellar, the Caesar, full of beautiful wines, what kind of barrels does he use to store his wine? You know what kind of barrels? They're dirty, porcelain, earthenware vessels. They don't look pretty at all. They're all faded and why did your father store his precious, expensive wines in those vessels? She said, what should he do? He should be storing them in vessels of gold and silver, as is befitting the Caesar. So she says, wow, you're right. That's a good idea. So she calls over the servants and the others. She says, I want all of these barrels, these earthenware barrels in the cellar replaced with golden barrels. That is what my father deserves. So they replaced it. And a couple of days later, the Caesar was sitting for dinner and he asked for a glass of wine. So they brought a glass of wine from the cellar. He tasted the wine. The wine was off. The wine was disgusting. He says, what happened to this wine over here? They said, it's regular wine. Did something change in my cellar? Yeah, well, we thought that it's only befitting for you that we should make all the barrels into golden barrels, which is what we did. And the Caesar said, are you out of your mind? Do you know what gold and silver, these metals, do to wine? They ruin the wine. They make it go off, turn it into vinegar. That's not how you store wine. You have to store precious, beautiful, delicious wine in those disgusting earthenware, not pretty vessels. So he turns to his daughter and he says, what happened? Do you know anything about this? She said, that's what Rabbi Yeshua ben Hanania told me to do. He called him over and he said, Rabbi Yeshua, why are you advising my daughter to make this ridiculous change in the cellar? We just lost a fortune of wine. And he said, well, that was a lesson for your daughter. She was wondering how such a wise person like myself can be in such an ugly body. And I said, well, sometimes the most beautiful, precious things inside are sometimes housed in a vessel, in a body that is not so pretty. And you can have vice versa. When there's a concentrated effort on the beauty and the prettiness of the outside, that sometimes has a sacrifice on the inner spirit of the contents of what's inside. But Rabbi Yochanan had the internal beauty and the exterior beauty. Now comes the story. And the story introduces to us, it's going to be about Rabbi Yochanan and about another sage called Reish Lakish. Who was Reish Lakish? I want to tell you one thing for now. I'm not going to tell you any more because that'll ruin the story. But one thing for now is that it seems that he grew up in a Jewish home and he received a Jewish education. He was a member of the Jewish community. But at some time as a young adult, he left the Jewish community. And he sold himself to a Roman circus where he became one of the gladiators. So he totally left the Jewish fold and he became one of the Romans, the gladiators. He was known to be a strong man. He was hostile. He was violent. He was rough. Okay, now the story. Yom Echad, one day, Rabbi Yochanan was taking a swim, going to the mikveh, cooling off in the Jordan River. Chazir Reish Lakish. Reish Lakish was walking by. Reish Lakish is a bandit. He's part of the gladiators. He's walking by and he sees this sage, this rabbi in the water. V'shavar liyardena. He jumps into the River Jordan, abasre, to pursue him. Why? So there's a number of different suggestions here. Number one, it could be Rabbi Yochanan. By the way, we know he was very beautiful, but he didn't have any beard. So some people mistook him for a woman, actually. So it could be Reish Lakish thought it's a beautiful woman swimming in the River Jordan, and he can go and enjoy her. Another commentary says that he actually wanted to kill him. He wanted to kidnap him. He's a chance that a rabbi is alone. You can take him for ransom. So he's running after Rabbi Yochanan. When he reaches Rabbi Yochanan in the water, Amar Lei, Rabbi Yochanan sees him. He sees Reish Lakish, and he's burly, and he's well built, and he's solid, and he's muscular. And he says, with strength like yours, you should be dedicating that strength to studying Torah. Amar Lei, Reish Lakish had a quick comeback, and he says, yeah, well, beauty like yours, that should be for women to enjoy. So they're having this funny conversation with each other. Most unexpected. Amalei, so Rabbi Yochanan turned to Reish Lakish and he recognizes who he was, it appears. And he says as follows. If you will return to the community, if you return to the Torah, to Jewish life, which from here, by the way, we learn that Reish Lakish used to be part of the community, but then he left, like I said earlier. If you return and you come back and you become a pious Jew, when you join us in the Bet Midrash and you study Torah, I'm making an offer. I'll give you my daughter to marry, my sister to marry. My sister is even more beautiful than I am. And he knew this was a soft spot of Rish Lakish. I don't know if the sister knew about this, but that's something else to think about. So Rish Lakish says, all right, Kabil, Alei, he accepted the offer, and he says, I hereby accept upon myself, I'm going to change my life completely, make a total shift, leave the Roman circus, leave my gladiator bandit life. I'm joining you in the Jewish community, in the synagogue, in the study hall. I'm going to become a student in the yeshiva. He tries to climb out of the river to put his clothes back on, and he was unable to get out of the river. He couldn't climb up. He lost his physical strength. What happened over here? So here is something interesting where there's a teaching in the Talmud in Sanhedrin that says as follows. In scripture, the word Torah is referred to by the word Toshia. Toshia can have many meanings, but one of the meanings comes from the word tash, which means to weaken. And the Talmud says, Torah weakens a person. What does it mean, Torah weakens a person? To the contrary, Torah strengthens a person. We know that Torah brings a person strength. It brings them courage and confidence and fortitude to be able to live, as they should, in a disciplined way. So some commentaries write Torah weakens the Yetzer Hara. Torah weakens the evil inclination about a person. But others write that Torah weakens your physical strength. And the explanation is that there's a certain strength and might and power about the physical body that's like brute physical power. And for that, you have to be totally immersed in nurturing and in building up that potential of physical strength of the body. And if you commit to a life of Torah and you commit to a life of ideas and ideals and you spend time studying and you're now working on matters of the spirit and matters of character, you're taking away some of that energy. You're no longer able to have that level of brute base kind of strength that some people have. The Torah does that to you. So it weakens that part of you, but the Torah also gives other strengths. As the Talmud says, that God told the Jewish people, don't worry that you're studying Torah and your strength is going to be weakened. I'm going to give you another kind of strength. What strength are you going to have? So we say in the Pasuk, Hashem oz la'amo yitain. God gives strength to his nation. Hashem yivarech et amo b'shalom. God blesses his nation with peace. The strength of peace. The strength of compassion. The strength of kindness. The strength of character. The strength of wisdom. These are also very important strengths, possibly more important than physical might. So here Reish Lakish, even before he started to study Torah, but the fact that he accepted this yoke of heaven upon himself, he already found himself weaker and he lost some of his strength. Okay, apparently he made it out of the river, he got dressed, and now he comes home with Rabbi Yochanan. Akrei v'asnei, Rabbi Yochanan brought him into the yeshiva and he started to teach him. He taught him scripture, he taught him Mishnah, he taught him all the different parts of Torah. Veshavye Gaver Rabba. Reish Lakish had a good head, and very quickly he emerged as one of the brightest and most successful students, and he became a very great sage in the academy himself. To the extent, here's a story that happened. Yom Echad, one day in the Bet Midrash in the study hall, have a miflag Bet Midrash. There was a disagreement, an argument in the Bet Midrash about a law. What was the question that was raised? The question was as follows. It's regards to a law of purity and impurity. So you might know that there are certain sources of impurity, like a dead body, something that lacks any life is impure. When a vessel comes in contact with that impure source, the vessel can become impure. When can a vessel become impure, which is why you have to purify it and put it in the mikveh, etc.? When can a vessel become impure? When it is already a vessel. It's complete. It's finished being made. If a vessel is still in the process of being made, it's not yet a complete vessel. It doesn't have the status of a keli, of a vessel, and it is not susceptible to become impure. So here's the question. Saif, when it comes to certain weapons, like saif is a sword, a sakin, a knife, a pigyon, a dagger, a romach, a spear, magal yad, the hand sickle, magal katsir, a harvesting sickle, all of these kinds of weapons and tools. When do they become susceptible to become impure if they come in contact with the source of impurity? That's the question. So the Gemara gives the obvious answer, Mishat Gemar Malachtan, when they're finished being made. When it's still in the process of being carved and being welded, it's not yet ready. But when it's finished, so it's ready to become, it could become impure. And when is that point that these weapons are finished being made? So Rabbi Yochanan was in the study hall, he was the teacher. So he said, Rabbi Yochanan Omar, Mishit Sarfim Bekivshan. Once you have finished fashioning this weapon or this tool, you put it inside the cauldron, inside the furnace, you heat it up and you strengthen it and you harden it, and then it's ready to be used. That's its finishing point. Once it comes out of the cauldron, out of the furnace, now it's susceptible to the laws of impurity. That was Rabbi Yochanan's opinion. Rish Lakish piped up. He said, actually, that's not the point where a weapon is finished being prepared, but rather, only even after you've taken out of the furnace that's been hardened, everybody knows that, well, not everyone knows apparently, but that a weapon, a lot of its power is not just what it can do. It can, stab and kill, but it's also intimidating. The weapon has to look good. It has to be shiny. It has to scare off the enemy. So after it's hardened, then you polish it in water. After the polishing, then it's ready to be used. So Rish Lakish says only after the polishing is it susceptible to become impure. Rabbi Yochanan was challenged here by his student. So Amalei, Rabbi Yochanan responds to Rish Lakish, Lista b'listiyuse yada. You were the bandit. I should have remembered. You used to do these things. You should know better than me. Of course you know. You're right. Now, he was conceding to his opinion. He was also saying it what appeared to be in a not nice way. We remember you. We know where you come from. Amalei, Rish Lakish was very offended. Rish Lakish says, Umaya Hanseli, what did you do to me? What benefit did you bring me? Hasam Rebbe Karali, Hacha Rebbe Karali. When I was a bandit, they called me Rebbe, they called me leader. Now I'm in the Bet Medrash. They again call me Rebbe, call me leader. Nothing has changed. My status of leader, it's still the same. I didn't need to come here to be called a leader. I could have been there. Rabbi Yochanan, what did you do to me? What benefit did you do by bringing me here to the Bet Medrash, to the community? Amalei, Rabbi Yochanan responded, Ahani lecha, what do you mean? I brought great benefit to you. I brought you under the wings of God. I brought you into the Jewish community. I introduced you back into the Torah. It's a strange conversation, and there's a lot of different commentaries about what Rish Lakish was attacking, and Rabbi Yochanan was responding. We didn't have time to go into it now, but one thing we see for sure, Rish Lakish was very offended. Why was he offended? We have an important rule. It's a law in the Torah that says, if somebody has a dark past, it says it about a person who converted. They used to be a non-Jew, now they're Jewish. A person who was a sinner, a criminal, and then now they're done teshuvah, and they've rehabilitated themselves. You're not allowed to remind the person about their past. It's painful. You're not allowed. They've worked so hard to restore themselves, to change their lives, to pick their socks up, to rehabilitate themselves. And in one moment, you can throw out a nasty comment and you deflate everything that they've built up. You're not allowed to. It's a big sin to remind someone about something they've done wrong in the past when they've worked so hard to try to correct it. I remember I was once trying to understand something about prison. I wanted to know what's going on over there. And I knew somebody who had spent time in prison. And so I wanted to ask him, now he was out and he changed his life completely. And I wanted to ask him about it. And I said, no, I can't ask him about it because I don't know if I'm allowed to. I have to wait till he starts a conversation with me. And I waited very patiently for a long time. And eventually, in one conversation, he started to talk to me about his experiences there. So I saw that he wasn't pained by it. He was ready to talk about it once again. So then I had this conversation with him. Something to be very careful about. Okay. So now Rish Lakish has come back to Rabbi Yochanan in pain, and there's been this uncomfortable conversation. So the Gemara says, Chalash daited the Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan became very weakened. He became almost offended and ill from what transpired. Now, because Rabbi Yochanan, the teacher, became ill and offended, Chalash Rish Lakish. Now Rish Lakish, the student, also became very sick. He was so sick that he made the teacher sick, and they had this This was a cycle. Each one was respecting so much the other and so disappointed they had this nasty encounter. And now Reb Yochanan is not feeling good. And now Resh Lakish is full and very sick. But Resh Lakish was gravely ill. So his wife, which is Rabbi Yochanan's sister, she came crying to Rabbi Yochanan and she said, Kabachya, she was weeping. Armalei, and she told Rabbi Yochanan, Asay b'shvil b'ni, you have to help me. Give a blessing. You have to heal my husband. He's so sick. He's on the verge of death. Do it for the sake of our children. They're going to grow up without a father. Rabbi Yochanan responded to his sister, Resh Lakish's wife, and he said, Armallah, Azva yisomech ani echye. He quotes a verse from Jeremiah that says, forget about the orphans, don't worry. Says God, I will take care of them. So then she sees she's not getting very fast, so she pleads and she says, Asay b'shvil al-menusi, do it for the sake of my widowhood. I'm not going to have a husband anymore. Heal him. Amallah, he quotes the same verse and he says, V'amenusayich alai tiftuchu, and let your widows trust in me. Seems like he basically told her, I don't have the power to heal him, or God is not granting me the power to heal him. He's going to pass away, but you should know that God is saying, God will take care of you and take care of the orphans, your children. Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish eventually passes away. Okay, listen carefully. Now this is where the meat of the story is. When he passed away, Rabbi Yochanan Basrei Tuva. Rabbi Yochanan was distraught. This was his friend. This was somebody that he brought back to the community. He worked so hard on him. They were so close. Now he passed away. Rabbi Yochanan is devastated in an inconsolable way. Amar Rabbanon, so they saw that this Rabbi Yochanan is depressed. He's staying home. He's not coming to the yeshiva anymore. We've got to do something about this. So they said, Man leizvo liyasve daite. Who can we send to appease Rabbi Yochanan's mind and restore him back to health? Nezel, Rabbi Elazar ben Pedut. We should send Rabbi Elazar, the son of Pedut. This is a different Rabbi Elazar than before. De mechadedin shmaite. Because he's very sharp. And he's very well versed in learning. And I'm sure if he goes to Rabbi Yochanan's house and starts a conversation about learning, Rabbi Yochanan is going to really enjoy studying with him, and that's going to bring him back to life. This is amazing. Azal, so Rabbi Elazar went to the house of Rabbi Yochanan. Yasif Kamei, and he sat in front of him and said, Rebbe, let's talk. I want to learn from you. Teach me something. Rabbi Yochanan, every time Rabbi Yochanan voiced an opinion about something in Jewish law, Amalei, Rabbi Elazar, with his sharpness and his great familiarity with all of Torah, he responded and he said, Tana de Misayelach, I have a Talmudic teaching that supports what you're saying. You're right. And he quoted it. Each time Rabbi Yochanan said something, and Rabbi Elazar did him the favor of bringing him a support for his view. Rabbi Yochanan was not enjoying this. Omar, he got all frustrated. Omar, and he said, At Kabar Lakisha, you think you came here to take the place of my dear friend Reish Lakish who has passed away and try to bring me back to life? You're nothing like Reish Lakish. Bar Lakisha, with my dear friend Reish Lakish, ki hava mina milsa, every time I voiced an opinion, have actually esrim ve'arba kushisa. He would challenge me with 24 different questions, 24 different refutations. He would prove me I'm wrong in 24 different ways. And then I would try to resolve each one of those 24 questions with 24 answers. And this back and forth, he challenged me and I tried to respond. He didn't give me an easy time. Through this process, we were able to crystallize the law better, crystallize the logic, and arrive at the proper results. And you just keep telling me, you're right, and you keep bringing me supports that support my view. You think I don't know what I'm saying is good. If I'm saying it, I know it's good. I think it's good. I don't need you to tell me that it's good. Reish Lakish never told me that it's good. He told me why I'm wrong 24 different times. Havaka Azil, so Rabbi Elazar had no luck and he left the home. Bakara money. And Rabbi Yochanan now starts to go around his house and he's even sicker than before. He tears his garment. V'kabachi, and he breaks down crying. V'amar, and he says, Hey, Cho'at Bar Lakisha, where are you, my dear friend Reish Lakish? I miss you so much. Hey, Cho'at Bar Lakisha, where are you, Reish Lakish? Havakat Savach, and he was screaming, wailing, Ad the Shaf Daite, until he lost his mind. He became so ill. Bar Rabban Rachmi Alei, the rabbis and others tried to pray for him. Didn't work. Genach nafshe, and he passed away. The end of the story. A sad ending. Rabbi Reish Lakish passed away first, having fallen ill from becoming upset with his teacher. And now the teacher misses the student so much, he also falls ill. But let's not focus on the tragic ending. Let's focus on this relationship that Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish built together. Rabbi Yochanan did not appreciate when he had students and colleagues always telling him that he's right. Always telling him, yeah, excellent. Whatever you say is good. You're always right. Rabbi Yochanan recognized that is not a way to build and to grow and to reach the truth. Rabbi Yochanan enjoyed Rabbi Lakish because every time he said something, Reish Lakish challenged him. Reish Lakish came from a different worldview. Reish Lakish came from a different planet, a different set of life experiences, a different background. Reish Lakish saw everything completely different to how Rabbi Yochanan saw them. Rabbi Yochanan said black, he said white, or white and black, or yes is no, and no is yes. They did not see eye to eye on anything. They disagreed about everything. And Rabbi Yochanan said, that was a true friend. That's somebody who I can hold close to me, somebody I know that supported me in life, and I supported him, and we were able to grow in a genuine, honest way. I don't want to be in the echo chamber where everything is familiar and look-alike to me. That's not the real world. That's not the world that God created. God created a colorful world. You know what kind of world God created? When the Jews were instructed to build the Mishkan, the tabernacle in the desert, you may know that one of the tapestries they had to build, which is going to be a roof over the structure, was a very colorful tapestry made from a tachash animal, which apparently the animal became extinct after, it doesn't exist, but its hides were multicolored. Strange animal. And they used that as a tapestry over the roof of the Mishkan. Everyone asks the question, but we know that the way the Mishkan was covered as a roof, first there were the goat tapestries and other regular tapestries, and on the top is the colorful tapestry. What's the point of putting this beautiful, colorful tapestry on the top, where if you go inside the Mishkan tabernacle and you look up, you're not going to see it. You're going to see what's underneath it, the lower layers of regular tapestries. Nobody sees the top layer. They didn't have, what do they call those? Those drone cameras in those days. No one's going to see it. What's the point? You know what the answer is? When Hashem looks down from heaven and he looks at the Jewish people, he looks at the human people, he doesn't want to see one color. He doesn't want to see everything matching and fitting and perfectly the same and everyone identical to each other. He wants to see the colors of the rainbow. He wants to see the multicolored layers of the human people. Different styles, different cultures, different backgrounds, different languages, different values, different lifestyles, all in one tapestry, all cohesively getting along and respecting each other. That is the home of God. That's the tabernacle. That's the space that God says, there I want to live. I don't want to be in a place where we shun out and don't allow the voice and the color of somebody else different than us. We have a lot of these teachings when it comes to studying Torah, but it's applicable to other areas of life. I want to read this teaching out to you. I have two teachings I want to read to you. One teaching is in regard to the importance of listening to each other. In Talmud Shabbat, it says as follows. Rabbi Abba said that Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish said, this is a quote from Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish, two Torah scholars who listen to each other in the discussion of halacha, the Holy One, blessed be He, hears their voice. And it quotes a verse to support that. But if they don't listen to each other in their conversation, they cause the divine presence to depart from among Israel. And the verse says, run away, my beloved. You know where God wants to be? In a conversation where two people do not agree with each other, don't see eye to eye with each other, but they're listening to each other. Not Not, yeah, I know what you're saying. I know what you mean. I know what you're going to say. Don't be the other person's spokesperson. Don't think that you know what they think. Let them tell you what they think. And when they tell you what they think, don't be thinking about what you want them to be telling you, or don't be thinking about what you want to respond. Stop thinking. Allow their thoughts to enter your mind. How else do you want to understand somebody else? Unless you can create that space in yourself to give up, bend a little bit, be soft like a reed, and learn to appreciate and understand another human being who's coming from a different place than you are and disagrees with you. You don't have to agree, but you have to listen, and you have to respect, and you have to understand that there's allowed to be another opinion and another way of seeing things and doing things. Of course, we're talking about when everybody is respectful and civil and safe and moral and legal. And within those confines, there's place for everybody. There are place for differences. One more teaching. Very, very important. How to become enemies and how enemies can become friends. There's a verse in Tehillim, King David says that Ki dabru et ovim basha'ar. Those that study Torah are like enemies at the gate. So the Gemara says, what? Studying Torah, you're like enemies? So the Gemara says, yes, sometimes if you see two people study, they become like enemies. You ever go into a yeshiva study hall and two people sitting over a book of Talmud and they're screaming at each other. You're wrong. You don't know what you're talking about. How could you even suggest such a foolish thing? That's not the interpretation. It's wild. You're supposed to be careful when you're doing that, but it gets very heated and passionate. They look like enemies. They are enemies because they're not agreeing on the interpretation. But then the Torah says in the verse in Bamidbar, it says, Al Kain Niyamar. It should be told, B'Sefer Milchamat Hashem, in the book of the wars of God. God says, Et Vahev Basufa, about what God gave at the Sea of Reeds when he split the sea, Vetan Chalim Arnon, and the streams of Arnon. Things that were recorded in this book of the wars of God. Et Vahev Basufa literally means that which was given at the Sea of the Reeds, but the Talmud says there's a deeper message over here. Vahev also comes from the word Yahiv. Yahiv means to love, to give, to be friendly and to be kind. Basufa, Sofa can mean the reeds, or Sof can mean the end. You know when it's a true argument. You know when it's a true debate for the sake of the Torah, for the sake of God, for the sake of truth. That even whilst you're having the argument, you may be biting each other's necks, not literally, arguing, disagreeing. You're wrong. But at the end of the day, when you close your books and you walk out of a study hall, Vahev Basofa, you walk out as the greatest of friends. Enemies that are fighting for the truth always walk out hand in hand as friends and people who love each other. That's a test when a fight is for truth. And so to recognize it's okay to have an enemy. And that enemy really is going to be your favorite friend. Rabbi Yochanan's greatest student and colleague was Reish Lakish, the one that disagreed with him all the time. Most people would say, Reish Lakish, welcome into my synagogue. You're arguing and disagreeing everything that I talk about. We talk about racism. We don't have to look so far as the white community and the black community. Look inside your own community, in the Jewish community. All these divisions also. The Sephardi community, the Ashkenaz community, the Orthodox community, the non-Orthodox community, the Hasidic community, the non-Hasidic community. How do people feel about each other? We have this tendency, it's a human tendency, when there's something that we're not familiar with, it doesn't look like us, doesn't live like us, has a different set of customs, a different way of looking at things, a different way of reading, a different way of talking, a different lifestyle. We keep a distance. We're nervous. This is not us. We don't want to know about it. We want to closet our children and keep them. That's not where the Torah is. That's not where God is. God is in the home where there's many, many colors. God is in the home of the study hall where two people are ready and open and confident and have trust in each other to be able to disagree with a lot of passion. But to know that they're fighting for the same truth and they're going to walk out of this thing respectful and friends. because we learn to see things outside of our world. No person's mind knows it all, sees it all. Only God knows it all. My mind sees how my mind understands. I would learn so much and benefit so much to also see how you understand. Number one, maybe I'll learn something that I didn't know and I'll end up agreeing with you. Or even if I learn something from you that I still continue to disagree, but when you create that disagreement, you're for sure going to sharpen my knowledge of what I know. Like Reish Lakish did to Rabbi Yochanan. We gain from each other when we unite with each other. Our differences are that which can strengthen us, not weaken us. That is the lesson. From the story of the ugly person, where Rabbi Elazar had true remorse, and then he was forgiven because he's not going to do it again. And he acted out of an act of arrogance, and he realized how humble we need to be. And it's the lesson from the story of Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish. I think these two stories, which are some of my favorites, are so important to think about and to study nowadays. And I want to pray together with you that thank you for joining us in this learning. We should have a world that is restored back to a civil world, a peaceful world, a respectful world. We don't need to all be the same. We should not be all the same, but we should all be traveling in the same direction. And that direction is the direction of truth and of God and what God wants from each of us in this world. And if we learn how to understand someone else and welcome them into our life, even if it's going to be different than us, we'll be stronger, they'll be stronger, and we'll create a true home for God here in this world. Thank you for joining. See you next Tuesday night, 8:30 p.m. for part 2. God bless you.